What really is the exact situation on the ground both in India and abroad when it comes to Omicron variant?
So thank you very much for having me on the show. I would like to tell you a few things which are important to understand the situation in India. Number one, that Omicron percentage is rising consistently. It has gone up to 86%, 84%. Number two, we have to understand that from the international data, we know that Omicron causes mild illness in the sense that it is a short-lived illness like common cold, which is presenting with, blocked nose, scratchy throat, running nose, little bit of fever, no loss of smell, no loss of taste, generally is not causing pneumonia, and so patient becomes all right in 3 to 4 or 5 days of time and recovers fast. But we need to understand that contagiousness is the R naught factor is 3 times more than what we had in Delta, and Delta was 2 to 3 times more than the Alpha. So it is spreading very fast. So before we become complacent about this virus, we need to understand that our population is very large. We have a large population which is immunocompromised, can be because of the age, can be because of the diabetes, hypertension, heart diseases, blood pressure.
Yes, sir, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So this virus, which is supposed to be a very causing very mild illness, we know that it can cause serious illness in patients who are immunocompromised, elderly, hypertension, pressure, diabetes, and so we need to understand from the data from the South Africa. In the South Africa, there is data which has come that out of the patients who were admitted, there were 43% who came to the emergency. 43% got admitted in the Omicron wave as compared to 69%. 31% were in acute respiratory failure as compared to 91% before, and 17% required oxygen as compared to 74% before, and the death was to the tune of 2.7%. Why I am telling you all this data? That we should not take it lightly. The numbers are rising, like Delhi has seen 22,000, Mumbai has seen more than 20,000. The numbers are rising. So therefore, we need to do very, very good community medicine or epidemiological practices to control this menace. Otherwise, we are going to be in trouble, because if you see the USA, the death rates are 15 to 1800 per day. UK, the death rates are high. A small country like Poland has 800 to 900 deaths. So we should not be sitting idle, thinking that this disease is very, very mild and it will not cause any trouble. So this is the overall. But having said that, there is no need for panic. One should, if you have any symptoms, my advice would be to please go for testing, and and isolate yourself. You have a responsibility towards your family and neighbors and other people. Do not go for parties. Do not go for gatherings. Avoid unnecessary travel. Avoid unnecessary gathering. Always use your mask properly. Follow social distancing to the extent possible. Keep on practicing hand hygiene. This is the only way to minimize the spread of the disease. We also know that large number of healthcare workers are affected. 750 doctors have been infected and they are out of the work. So if we don't control this, our medical system will be overwhelmed, and we will not have healthcare workers to provide you services. So therefore, it is a responsibility of all the citizens of this country to be vigilant about this Omicron and follow the COVID appropriate behavior. Thank you.
Okay. Community medicine and epidemiological intervention, what do you mean by that? If you could explain that in layman terms.
So the epidemiological, as we were taught in our MBBS, there is an agent, host and environment. Now agent we know is Omicron virus. The environment we know, it is a question of the controlling the environment. That means agent means that we know the character of the virus. It should be diagnosed. Other part is the case finding. Case finding is part of the epidemiological tool for controlling a disease. So India is very competent, and we have amazing capability of testing, and there are two types of tests which are available. One is of course RT-PCR test. The other test which has become quite popular is home test. That is a self-test which we do. We need to understand that RT-PCR remains the gold standard for diagnosis, but it is expensive. The availability is there, but it is not available in small towns or villages. Sometimes it may not be available. The sensitivity of RT-PCR test at best is about 80%. That means if there is 100 cases of corona, 80% will be detected, 20% will still become negative. That rapid antigen test or home test, as it is also called, is a very good test which is easily available, is inexpensive, can be done by a person at home, but its sensitivity is something like 50 to 70%. It's less than RT-PCR, but we have to understand that once the home test is positive, that means positive. There was a study done in Canada with 9 lakh samples, and they found that the false positivity was 0.015%, meaning thereby if the home test is positive, it should be considered as positive. So coming back to the point, the case finding is important. After the case finding, the isolation is important. We understand the difference between quarantine and isolation. Isolation is done for the people who have got disease or the suspected of having disease. Quarantine is done as a preventive measure if the person is exposed or is at high risk. Now, once the person gets running nose or sore throat or fever, or he feels feverish, then it is his responsibility to be isolate himself while being tested, and if tested positive, then he should be isolated for a minimum period of 7 days as per the Indian guidelines, and minimum period of 5 days as per the guidelines by CDC Atlanta, United States. After 7 days without testing, this person can go out and use a mask, but be conservative for another 5 days in going out and traveling. So, controlling this disease has got two facets. One is case finding, other is isolation, and third, most important, is the vaccination, in which I think India has done amazingly well by 1.5 billion dosages have been given. 90% of the Indian adults are already have received at least one dose. Now we must understand that vaccination does not necessarily prevent infection. And you and me all know that so many of our friends got infected despite have received 2 dosages. So they should not think that they were not benefited by vaccination. Now we are the people, suppose we get infection after vaccination, the disease is very mild. And internationally we know from the data, from the South Africa also, the severe disease occurred in people who were not vaccinated. So my advice would be that people who have had a hesitation for vaccination, which is minuscule in India as compared to the UK and USA, they should go for the vaccination. Those who have received 2 dosages of vaccination, whenever their turn comes, they should go for an additional dose or whatever it is called.
Precautionary dose.
Follow these things: case finding, preventing transmission, enhancing vaccination. These are the 3 tools which are with us for prevention. If I don't say, I'll be deficient in my utterances, that there has been significant advances in the management of COVID in last 2-3 months, and that has been minimizing the severity of infection. Nobody is bothered about running nose or blocked nose or sore throat or scratchy throat, bit of fever, you take paracetamol, you become alright. But important thing is that severity of disease which leads you into the ICU and requiring oxygen and going on ventilator. And it should be understood that it's not that 100% cases of COVID are Omicron. If that was so, we wouldn't be worried. 80%, 90%, 95%. The United States, UK and other countries are also struggling with small proportion of Delta and other variants which cause more severe disease. So what has happened during last 2-3 months that newer therapies have come. And one of them is popularly called as cocktail therapy or antibody therapy. What it does is they are preformed monoclonal antibodies which are geared towards the virus. Now this has got a proven value, but it is recommended not for everybody. Not that everybody who gets COVID should go for antibody, but those who have got severest of the immune deficiency because of transplant or cancers, or who are 70 plus, 80 plus, who are severely diabetic, those people can consider getting cocktail antibodies. Besides that, there has been consistent effort in finding antiviral therapy. We know that hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, azithromycin, doxycycline, nothing worked during first and second wave, and they have been given up. And also favipiravir also did not show benefit. But the newer drugs called molnupiravir and paxlovid, these are the two drugs which are approved by FDA and other international agencies, and Indian government is also frequently meeting to look into this whether they would be beneficial. These two drugs, of which molnupiravir has been approved by DCGI of India, is a oral drug which, if taken within 5 days of start of the illness, it reduces the severity of illness, and as per the one international study, the death rate also was 9 as against 1 in control and the cases group, and also the severity of the disease reduced by 30 to 50%. So this is a silver lining. Only time will tell how much it will benefit, but currently this drug is approved. So this is another armamentarium to protect our vulnerable group from
Dr. Khilnani,
disease.
Professor Khilnani,
come over a period of time.
Okay,
Thank
but
you.
Professor Khilnani, you say molnupiravir is approved by our regulatory authority. Who should take this drug? Of course, it should be taken on medical advice after consulting your doctor. But who are the people who should take this drug?
That's an amazing question. So molnupiravir is not approved for young people who are immunocompetent, who have got a mild disease and have a less chance of getting severe disease. This drug was actually tested in people who were unvaccinated, but has shown amazing results. And those people did not have Omicron virus. Those cases who were tested had Delta, Alpha and Beta viruses. But this is an antiviral drug. So answering your question, this should be given to people who have got a high risk of severe disease and death. And we all know that, elderly, the diabetics and those with immunocompromised conditions, those who are on cancer drugs, those who are transplant patients, those who have got severe heart disease, are the people, if they get COVID positive, within 5 days, if you come to know about it, if you give molnupiravir, there is at least one study published in New England Journal of Medicine, which is one of the top journals, which has shown significant benefit in reducing the severity and death. Thank you.
Okay, but you saying that this has not been tested for whether it works for Omicron. So what would if somebody gets positive and has all that comorbidities, diabetes, etc., and are senior citizens, what would the doctor do? He would ask them for to go in for genome sequencing to figure out first whether they have Omicron.
There is no time to do that, and since it is not an antibody, it is an antiviral drug. Since it works for Alpha, Beta and Delta variant, it is proven, and it will take a lot of time to conduct a study on Omicron. The scientists feel that there is no reason that why it will not work against Omicron variant also. And another thing which I must say, that when you get the RT-PCR positive report, you cannot find out whether it was, as of now, whether it is a Alpha variant or a Delta variant or a Omicron variant.
That you will only find in whole genome sequencing.
You have to save the life. So if I was to treat my patient who has got a high risk of getting severe disease and death, I would prefer to treat it with antiviral drugs, so that to prevent, till the time we get a test which at the outset can detect Omicron virus, and the test is in the pipeline. I think in a week's time we may have a test which the RT-PCR will tell us that whether it's Omicron or any other variant. Till that time, this policy to my mind as a physician should follow.
Oh, that's interesting that you tell that you saying that there is testing going on to figure out whether the RT-PCR can reveal what variant you have, because right now it only reveals whether you are COVID positive or COVID negative. But from so you're saying in a week's time we would have an RT-PCR which would tell us that which variant are we suffering from.
So ICMR scientists have already come out with the RT-PCR test. Actually, going a little more technical, there is S gene deletion.
Okay.
If it is detected by RT-PCR, it indicates that it is Omicron, and this has been tested in the laboratory testing, and it is being discussed and being considered for approval as a test for finding out Omicron. And I have the information, unofficial though, that in a week's time we may have a test which will detect Omicron by the RT-PCR at the outset. The gene sequencing takes 3 to 7 days, which is not practicable as far as the patient care is concerned, because by then it becomes too late.
Okay.
So whenever we get infection or we vaccinate, there are two types of immunity that we develop. One is humoral immunity. Humoral immunity is exemplified by antibodies. And second is cellular immunity, which is popularly called as memory cells. So when we get first dose of vaccine, the antibodies form. When you give a booster dose, which we all have got, the antibodies are level further rises. These antibodies are like infantry of a battalion. As the infection occurs, these antibodies are ready in the blood to attack the virus so that infection does not occur. However, the level of the antibodies gradually over a period of time reduce, and sometimes they become undetectable. However, the cellular immunity or the memory cells remain active for lifelong, majority of time. These are the memory cells which will mount immunity on recognizing a known enemy, which has been memorized by the vaccination or the previous infection, and it will act, but it takes little longer than the antibodies to act. These are the ones which leads to reduced severity of disease because they come little later into the action. Now, what was found with COVID, as the first and second dose were given in the Western world and in India also, and the majority of studies came from United States and Israel and other developed countries, that over a period of time, especially by 5 to 6 months, the level of antibodies was waning off. Subsequently, the study came from Israel that breakthrough infections were becoming common. Now, breakthrough infections are the ones which occur in people who are completely vaccinated. Even then they get infection, which we are seeing nowadays. So Israel people were one of the first to start a third dose, what we call as additional dose, and they called it booster dose. Israel people also found out by their community studies that longer the gap between the second dose, the higher were the chances of the breakthrough infection. So if the 2 months have passed by after second dose, the chances of breakthrough infection was lower. If the 6 months had passed by, then chances of infection were getting higher. Therefore, the question came that a booster should be given, which in our country is called an additional dose or preventive dose. Now, booster dose is nothing new to mankind. Like flu vaccine, we take it every year. Similarly, we have taken boosters in our childhood all the time to boost our immunity. Now, as far as the COVID is concerned, whether this booster is 6 months, should be given 6 monthly, or it can be given yearly, no one knows. But since this is a pandemic situation, and the breakthrough infections started occurring in United States and Israel and in other countries, they started their third dose 5 months or even 3 months after the second dose. Now, probably only the time will tell. And I must tell you, normally development of vaccination takes 1 year, 10 years. Whereas in the pandemic situation, the scientist community were able to give us vaccine within a period of 12 to 15 months. That's commendable. So, therefore, some questions are unanswered. And one of the questions that is unanswered is, what should be the gap between two dose, second and third dose? What should be the gap between third and fourth dose? So, with the course of time, they are consistently reducing the gap between two dosages because it is a lethal disease. Currently, Indian government has said that after 9 months of the second dose, you go for the third dose. This will, and also I must tell you that Israel
after 9 months of the second dose,
by giving third dose, they were able to reduce the rate of breakthrough infections. So therefore, it is very important, those who have received second dose and they are due for the third dose, they must take third dose as and when their time comes. Thank you.
okay.
So you are making your questions more difficult now. So we need to understand what is endemicity. Aren't we living with chicken pox? We are living with measles. We are living with hepatitis. We are living with so many viral infections. And what is the endemic situation? Endemic situation is the one where a particular infection remains in the community at a relatively fixed slow rate. And that is what the endemicity will be determined by the host and also immune status of a community. So what we are trying to achieve, suppose imagine a situation if the whole world is vaccinated. Whole world means children, adults and everybody. And so therefore the transmission will slow down. And now the immunity can come either by vaccination, immunity can come by getting natural infection as we got during the Delta wave. While the vaccination was not so much percentage we had achieved, but our seropositivity was 67% including children. So therefore when the community is well vaccinated or well immune with a particular infection, that infection transmission slows down to a level which becomes almost fixed and it doesn't take a pandemic or outbreak form. That is what is called endemicity. And what I expect that as the vaccination is going on at a very high rate, not only in India or developed countries, but developing countries, if the vaccination process will be complete all over the world, and the boosters will be given periodically as would be determined by scientific studies, there would be a time that we will be away from COVID in the form of outbreaks or pandemic. It will become endemic. And I am very hopeful. And I always say one phrase, no one is safe till everyone is safe. And we actually saw that while the UK and USA had vaccination rates of 60, 70, 80%, South Africa was at very low at vaccination, and we saw the outbreak of Omicron in South Africa. So my thinking is that world has to vaccinate, and I think the developed countries and rich countries have a responsibility towards the poorer countries to provide them sufficient vaccination so that everybody gets vaccinated and we all can become safe.
Absolutely. Vaccine equity is a dire need of the hour, and hope the world comes out of their small term interests and realize, as you're saying, that unless everybody is safe, nobody is safe. Dr. G.C. Khilnani, at that point we leave it there. Many thanks for joining us on the show and sharing your insights with us.